Hi friends, hi, how are we doing today? I hope your day is going well and I hope you're ready for a super fun, really long video. I know I say that a lot and the videos always end up being around half an hour, but this month's Knits and Babbles, I'm looking at my floor and we have a lot to discuss, not only knitting, but a lot of acquisitions, a lot of current projects going on, and a lot of new exciting things in my little yarn corner, or should I say hobby corner from now on. So I hope you're ready for a really fun Knits and Babbles. If you're new here, hi, hello, my name is Ev, and on this channel I like to talk all about knitting, spinning, and fiber related content. Knits and Babbles is a monthly, I try to do monthly roundup of everything that I have going on knitting wise, spinning wise, craft wise, and just what I'm up to. It's like a podcast type, sit down, hang out with me. So let's hop right into it. For fun today, I decided to wear last month's finished knit, which is the Blouse No.1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It's also starting to get a little bit colder here. It's a really gray day. You can probably tell I look super pasty. This is Blouse No.1 from My Favorite Things Knitwear. I knit this in one strand of merino wool held with one strand of Berroco Remix Light, which was a cotton blend, acrylic blend with a little bit of silk, and that is what gives this such a fun texture to it. So the constant green is the one strand of merino, and then the second strand, the Berroco, which is a French yarn I got at my local yarn shop here, has the kind of fun yellow, darker green, specks of white texture, and I think it adds a really fun textured look to this other rather really simple, beautiful sweater. I really love the kind of wider loose bell sleeve, and I love the really boat neck round collar. I'm not usually one who reaches for a type of boat neck, just more oval wide collar, but I feel like on this top it looks really nice with the raw edging at the top. There's no finishing, so you just bind on and knit. Cast on and knit and go from there. Same with the sleeves. It's just a regular cast off, and same with the body. I did iron this flat now that I have an iron so that the edges wouldn't roll up as much, and I think that really helps with the rollings. I've started doing that with a couple other of my shirts. I just iron them on a really low setting. My iron does have settings for wool, synthetics, and I think cotton, so depending what is heavier, like what percentage is higher in my project, I'll use that setting and just like spray it with some water and then iron it, and the curling isn't as prominent. It does come back as you wear the top, but it really helps. So this is what I'm wearing today. Now let's start talking about some knits, and the first one I want to talk to you guys about, usually I go by order I finish them, but today I'm a little bit pissed and I want to talk to you guys about it. Well, not pissed, I'm a little bit annoyed, and this is the first time that this has ever happened to me with a finished knit, so I want to talk about it like right now, and it is actually about these socks. So I knit these socks on my DPN needles. I used, oh, it's erased on this needle. I used US 1 2.25 millimeter needles, and this was knit up with a fingering weight sock yarn. It is a wool, alpaca, and acrylic yarn or nylon yarn for the elasticity. So it does have a little bit of stretch. This isn't blocked, and both of them are not blocked because I just finished the second one last night. So this was a sock that I designed myself, and it's just a 2x2 rib sock. I really like it. This sock feels really nice because of the wool, and the alpaca adds a really nice thickness and warmth to the sock. So definitely this is going to be a winter wearing sock. I did a gusset heel construction because I think that this might be my favorite type of heel to make on socks. I've knit different types of heel constructions and I always come back to this one. It's just was the first one I learned and is the one I'm most comfortable with, but it's also, personally, I just like wearing gusset heel socks. I then did a 2x2 all the way to the toe decreases, but in this construction, one of the little details that I added was inspired by some mittens that I knit early spring, late winter, and it was these mittens with a nice blue line all around. They're Fair Isle mittens, and they are Scandinavian inspired mittens. So I decided to add a little line all the way, and it goes all around to the tips of the toe. You can see it better on this side. So I thought that that was really cool, and I really liked having that line in these mittens, and I thought in a sock would be a nice little detail to add before getting into the plain stockinette foot, because I don't want rib on the sole of my foot. That's not going to be comfortable to wear in boots and shoes, I think. This was the first one that I knit, and I remember last month I think I had shown you guys this sock. My issue is now I knit these socks the exact same way. The exact same stitches, the exact same needles, the exact same construction. I wrote down the instructions in a pattern and reknit them. This sock ended up being smaller. Because I was reusing the instructions from this sock, I didn't try it on as I was knitting, and it wasn't until I bind it off. Like, I went by counting how many rows I created for this sock. I counted all the stitches and all the rows and did the exact same stitch and row count throughout on the exact same needles. This sock is smaller. For some reason, I guess I must have been stressed or something, but I became an increasingly tight knitter, and I didn't realize till I bind it off the tip of the toe. So I am now left with two different size socks. Like, I'm holding them at the tip. Do you see how much smaller the new sock is? It's like an inch smaller. I don't know how this could have happened. This is the first time that this has ever happened, and normally in the past I'll knit one sock, figure out the instructions, and then we'll just copy paste onto the second sock, and I always assume that they're going to be the same size as long as I go by the same row counts and stitch counts. I genuinely have no idea what happened here. I even weighed the socks to make sure that I used up the exact same amount of yarn. I used more yarn in this sock. The sock weighs 36 grams, where this one weighs 27 grams. This sock uses 10 more grams of yarn and it's smaller. So technically there is a tension issue, and I did something. I must have been super tensed the week I knit these socks. Well, this one. I now have 40 grams of yarn left. So I always joke around when I'm done socks, because I'm usually left with enough yarn to knit a third sock, and my joke is always, who has 3 feet, you know, because I'm always left with enough yarn to knit one more. I might have to, and I'm really tempted to see what would happen if I knit a third sock. Is it gonna match either of these two socks, or am I gonna be left with a third size of a sock, because who knows how I'm gonna be feeling that way if I'm gonna knit overly loose or overly tight. I don't know. This is just the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me so far in all of my years of sock knitting now. Weird. This one fits like a glove. This one is too small, so if the third sock ends up resembling this one, I might have to give it to someone who has smaller feet than me. Or could blocking help? I could try blocking them. I'm really tempted. I'm gonna knit the third sock for my third imaginary leg and foot, and then I'm gonna block all 3 socks, and we're gonna see. Technically these are done. I have 2 socks, so I technically beat my sock island syndrome, but I still have to knit a third sock now. Has this ever happened to any of you? Because this is the first time that this has ever happened to me, and I'm a little bit blown away. Really weird. Then I have my only other finished knit this month. Now this one is on my lap and it is wet. So I would have worn this today had it been dry, but I blocked it this morning, and I didn't think I would have time to film this Knits and Babbles this afternoon. So this is kind of on my part. My schedule changed, but I really want to show it to you, and yeah. So this is a test knit by Mipi the Label, and it is the Maple Meadow cardigan. I'm done. I finished it. So this is what it looks like, and it is wet and a little bit heavy. So hopefully holding it up like this won't ruin the blocking. I'm gonna literally put this back on the blocking mat as soon as I'm done filming. but this is my maple meadow cardigan. And yes, this is knit with my hand spun yarn. So I'm not too sure where the swatch was. It was on the board, but I brought it with me to get buttons a couple days ago, and it must be in the bag, whichever bag I took that day. But anyways, let's talk a bit about this knit. I got this wool from FibreWest back in March, and this was actually wool that I spun. It's Corriedale, 100% Corriedale, and I spun it into yarn during the Tour de Fleece. I was left with this one, which is the lighter color, because I split it up into two, because I originally thought I would be doing a color work, but because the wool shades were so similar, the lighter wool was just like a little bit lighter, and it kind of just looked more like it was from a different dye lot than a different intentional dye. So the colorwork idea was immediately thrown out the window. And when I finished the Tour de Fleece, I was left with 300 meters of the lighter wool, and I think 760 meters, almost maybe a little bit more, of the darker wool. I wasn't too sure directly what I would be doing with this yarn, but as soon as the Tour de Fleece kind of finished, which is a July spinning event, for those of you who don't know, it's an event that is held along with the Tour de France, which is the spinning event, the cycling event in France, where the cyclists do the tour for, I think it's 3 weeks. So the spinning event, Tour de Fleece, is held at the same time, and you can join community groups, you can join small local groups. A lot of these groups are online groups, and you can share your progress about what you're spinning on, whether it's wheel, electric wheel, supported spindle, drop spindle, however you're spinning your fiber. And it's just a way to get people to talk to each other and to share a common like goal and a common it just helps motivate everybody, and people really, a lot of people learned to spin this year because of it, and it's just really fun. So this was my main spin during the event. As soon as it finished, I was then accepted into the test knit for Mipi the label, which was the maple meadow cardigan. And for some weird reason, I had spun a sport weight yarn, and the pattern actually called for a sport weight held with a heavier mohair, or with a heavier mohair fiber. So I did a swatch, and I had the idea, because I knew I wouldn't have enough yarn for the whole sweater to be knit in the darker wool, because the sweater called for 900 meters for my size, or 950. I came up with the idea, because the dye lots were excessively close between the lighter shade of Corriedale that I spun and the darker shade, what if I knit it all in the dark wool, but then just did the extremities, like the collar, the button band, the rib at the bottom, both sleeves, in the lighter wool. So that is exactly what I did. And surprisingly, I'm glad I didn't try to do a color work with this yarn, because you can barely tell the difference in the wools. I mean, it is wet right now. The main place you can really see it is at the bottom right here. This is clearly, the rib is lighter than this, and that's just because of the lighter wool. The front, the collar with the button band, it's not too apparent. It is a smaller section, but definitely this would have been a mistake to use this yarn as a color, like opposite colors in a color work project, which is what I intended to do when I first spun up the yarn. So this used up the entirety of my dark wool, and now that I'm done, I am left with, I haven't weighed this just quite yet, but this is how much of the lighter wool I am left with after knitting the full sweater. So I'm really happy with it. I love the fabric. It is super, super soft, and throughout the entire project, I decided to add softness to it and to add the mohair element, because it called for a mohair. I decided to hold it with some Tynn silk mohair, which is a mohair, silk, and wool combination. So it's a little bit thicker than your traditional like knitting for olive mohair or drops mohair. It does have a bit more of a fuzz to it, which is really, really nice, and I think played really well with the color of the Corriedale. It was a natural Corriedale. It didn't have any dye in it. It was straight off the sheep's back, and I washed it, carded it myself. If you are interested in that, there is a full video I will be linking down below, which is my full wash prep before Tour de Fleece. And then if you want to see how I spun it up, I highly recommend you check out the Tour de Fleece videos. There's 3 parts, one for each week. But it was a really fun challenge, and this sweater couldn't have come at a better time. Okay, I'm gonna put this away because it is wet and it is making my lap all wet. So now hopefully in the next Knits and Babbles, I'll be able to show you guys exactly how it wears, and that's gonna be the sweater I'm gonna be wearing. I'm also hoping to wear this one at Knit City. It's gonna be one of my sweaters because I am going both days. So this cardigan does have a couple modifications to it and a couple different options for it, I should say. I ended up knitting the small because that was the size recommended in the like size chart for me, and I knit it according to the chart exactly. I didn't really do any modifications while working it up. I did choose to go with the option A for the sleeve, or the first option, which is the puff cuff sleeve. So there is another option, which is the tapered out sleeve. I really liked the look of the kind of like balloon sleeve, and I don't think I have, other than my my novice cardigan by Petite Knit, I don't have any balloon sleeves. I usually go for tapered out options. So this one, because it's such an elegant, dainty, loose sweater cardigan, I really wanted, I felt that the cuff puff, I felt that the balloon sleeve would look the best, and because of the color it's in, it's also a really light, soft color. I thought that that kind of whimsy would kind of give it a little bit more life because, yeah, it's such a neutral, soft color. I then decided to go with the option without the I-cord belt at the bottom because I just personally, that's not really my style. And I thought that it's a really cute look. I just don't see myself in an everyday, day-to-day wear with a little I-cord belt, but that's just a personal preference. In the test knit chat, a lot of people did opt for that option, and a few people, as I did, chose not to do it. Most people also did knit the tapered out sleeve. Some of them are still working up the cardigan as we speak, so I'm really interested in seeing how everybody's is gonna look. So far, they all look so different because everybody, even though we're all knitting the same pattern, it's kind of like drawing. If you are a drawer or you know people who are artists, they draw exactly, you can tell. Everybody can draw the same person or the same apple, but it's always gonna look like the person drawing it, if that makes sense. It's the same with animating. You animate as your own body moves. It's like how you understand the world is very unique to yourself. And even in knitting, you can tell who knit what, or yes, that is this person's knit, simply because they made it. I don't know. I find that so fascinating and amazing. So I'm really interested in seeing everybody else's knit and exactly how they're going to come up. And I'm really happy to have this one now finished, hopefully blocked and added to my wardrobe. So that is, I kind of derailed a little bit my train of thought on that cardigan, but that is my Mipi the Label Maple Meadow cardigan, and that is my last finished knit of the month. I then have my tied loop tee, which I believe, yes, this is the back, that I'm currently working up. It is still really small, but I did make quite a lot of progress on it. I remember last time I was just starting off the back panel, and I think I had a couple of waves started. I didn't have too much. Now this shirt, because it is like a rib, it's very stretchy, but just holding it up like this is super, super small. This is with the arm connection done. But again, because the way the fabric is being knit up, it's really prone to like scrunching, and I'm really interested in seeing, once it is blocked, how this is gonna wear. Hopefully it'll drape out to an appropriate t-shirt size because this is really small. I am currently knitting this in some Les Garcons yarn that I got from Montreal. This is have the label. Yes. So this is being knit up in Les Garcons. It is 70% BFL wool, 30% Masham wool. It is a British 4-ply, and this was Rose Anne's first knit. That is the colorway. I absolutely love this kind of like aubergine purple, kind of washed out lavender purple. I guess it's more lavender than aubergine, but this has been a really fun knit. It's just really, really small. This is also a knit that I kind of have to have the chart with it at all times because the rows, there's a couple knit rows before doing the wave, but there's very specific counts for the wave. And one thing that I really appreciate in this pattern, and I think I mentioned last time, is when you get to the wave section in the pattern, it'll specifically say, like, you'll see the chart and it'll be different colors. The white's gonna be for like knitting, and then the darker gray is gonna be for purls, but then it'll also say like a 5 when you switch for like the purls. And then for the knits, it'll say a 6. And then for the purls, it'll say a 12. So it specifically tells you, you don't have to count on the chart because it's different numbers every time to get a more, I don't know, the waves are just all differently created. So it's really, really interesting. It's a really fun knit. And last time I had said, oh no, this is going to take me forever to knit because it's going to be a lot of purls. And someone in the comment section was like, why don't you make a short row so that it becomes knitting instead of purling? And let me tell you, the pattern makes you do that. The pattern already makes you switch when you get to the outside, because technically the knits are all on the inside. These are all the knit rows and then the purl rows. So the top, you work it up back and forth before connecting. And then when you connect for the armhole, you're gonna work a short row so that you start working backwards, so that you're kind of working inside out, if that makes sense. So basically this isn't that bad of a top to knit up because I am now knitting this way. And as you can see, the purl rows are so much less on the inside than they are on the outside. So this has been working up a lot quicker. Again, this is still on 3.25 millimeter needles, and you're supposed to be using 3 millimeter needles. The reason why I decided to go up a needle size is because I couldn't find, and I still can't find, my 3 millimeter needles. I think I'm gonna need to buy new ones because in both my needle kits, the metal and the bamboo ones, that needle size has disappeared. I don't know where it is. This is a fingering weight. The yarn you're supposed to use is a sock weight yarn. So I'm supposed to be using a thicker yarn weight. So I'm using, to hit gauge, a bigger needle instead. This yarn is a little bit fluffy and bouncy because it's wool, spaces out and airs out a little bit more. So I'm not too worried on that front, and I am still hitting gauge. That is all that is important to me. So that is why I'm using a little bit bigger of a needle, but that honestly doesn't really change the fact that this is still a lot of stitches on very small needles. So it's a long one. It's a long work in progress. And at the same time, I wasn't working on this one too much because I was really focusing on my maple meadow cardigan for the test knit. The test knit, I think, finishes for that one next week. It's September 25th, I think. Maybe the week after that. Who knows? Can't believe we are already in September. But yeah, so here again is my other loops tee, and I hope to finish it soon. I hope to at least have the body done next time we talk. Then I have a new cast on to show you guys, and this is probably going to be the last knit that I'm showing you because the other knits I have going on right now, I honestly haven't worked too much on them, and there's no progress to really show because, again, my focus went all on the maple meadow cardigan. But this one is a new one. It's an exciting one because it's a multi-project knit, a multi-craft knit. That fits it better. And it is inspired by Knit Hip Hooray, and it is my Marie pillow by Petite Knit. I've actually casted it on and knitted it up. I remember in my plans for the fall knitting video, I had speculated and I couldn't choose between this one and the Technicolor pillow, and I decided to go with the Marie knit pillow or the Marie pillow. But this is what it looks like. This looks really good, and I've already gotten so many compliments on it in my posting on Instagram, so I'm really excited for it. I think right now I have about 12 centimeters done. I'm knitting the 50 by 50 centimeters, so this has a long way to go, and I'm knitting it up to replace you don't see them. But I'm knitting it up to replace the cover of my white pillows on my navy couch. I think that this is going to be super fun. This is taking me really, really long to knit up, but this is also being knit on US 2, which is 2.75 millimeter needles. So this is knit on a much smaller needle, and I am actually using some Gazzal XL wool. So this is a Turkish DK weight wool. This one is some wool with acrylic mixed in it. And then I'm holding it with, this is how much I have left of this little skein. I need to go get a new one, but I'm using it with this Dona navy from Fibres Natura. This one is just 100% merino, and it is also yarn that I picked up in Turkey on my trip last year. This is leftover from a past project. Now, one awesome thing about these pillows and all of her other pillows is you just knit one side. You don't have to knit the back panel. The back panel is actually a fabric, and then there's the stuffing. So this is going to be a much faster knit because I just have to knit one side, although I am making 2 pillows, so I'm going to have to knit another one. Now I'm realizing I'm running through this yarn kind of quickly. The original pattern says to use 300 meters. And I didn't weigh this before starting, but this one was 100 meters, and I'm already almost done the first skein, and I only have 12 centimeters. I've also noticed a couple other people on Ravelry listed that they ended up using more yarn than she recommended. So I'm wondering, because I have the exact gauge, so I'm wondering if what happened. This is like the first time a petite knit pattern, I would say, is going to be using more yarn than was recommended. Interesting. I know also petite knit, someone mentioned in my last video that you can buy the back panel, the fabric, on her site, but I think just because of shipping right now, and just because of, like, I don't know, stuff to be delivered in Canada takes super, super long. The the money difference, the convergence. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the word. Converting from Canadian dollar to, where is she? She's in Denmark, right? To the Danish kroner? No, koran is the, okay. Let's just, you know what I'm saying. But essentially, I think I'm just going to be skipping that, and I'm just going to sew it myself. I think it's just going to be easier, and I don't want to have to deal with that. And I'm kind of going to be more proud to say, hey, I sewed an entire and knit an entire pillow myself. It might be more of a pain in the ass for me, but I think I'm going to be more proud of my pillows in the end if I do it fully myself. So I might be hating myself later for choosing this method, but this is what I'm going to be doing. So this is my Marie pillow. I really, really like it. And so far, after posting it online, have gotten so many compliments on it already. And I'm just super happy to be knitting something other than a shirt or a sweater, and slowly working up my home decor knits, because so far I've only knit Christmas ornaments and my chicken. That is the only home decor knitting that I've actually done. And this is a great way to use up yarn. I feel if you have leftover yarn from a project and aren't too sure what to do with it, you don't have enough for a sweater quantity, knit a pillow, knit home accessories. There's so many different options of home knitting. I know it's not as like fashionable and as trendy as sweaters. Excited, but I'm really excited to be knitting other items than clothing. I don't know. It's just a nice little change of pace for once. So I'm hoping to get more done on that soon, and hopefully finish the first pillow soon-ish. We'll see how long it takes. So now we're gonna head a little bit back in time, back to August 10th. And we're gonna start talking a little bit about Flock. So this doesn't say on here what the dates were, but from my recollection, it was on August 10th and August 11th. I had never been to Flock before, and I went with the intention to make a vlog, the intention to make a FlockFibre Festival video, because it was my first time at this convention. The only other conventions I've been to are here in Vancouver, which were Fibres and Knit City. And it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting to see American brands or American like small indie dyers and small fiber suppliers or yarn suppliers that I don't normally have access to here. Flock is a fiber convention that is held in Seattle at the convention center from Saturday and Sunday. It was on the 10th and the 11th of August this year. And I went with a couple of friends. We drove down on the Saturday morning and came back Saturday night, so we didn't even stay the full night. We just did literally a drive-in, drive-out crossing the border. It was a lot of fun, and it was kind of like a first time for the four of us to go out on a little excursion together, which was also really nice to hang out with these girls, which is why I also feel like I didn't really get too much footage. It was kind of more like a in the moment experience and not much of a vlogging day. Flock is also a much bigger convention than the ones I'm typically used to, so there were a lot of people. And one thing that I found kind of interesting is because there were so many more people, there were a lot more vendors, but we showed up, it started at 10 a.m. By the time we got there, because of the crossing and because we got breakfast, we got there around 11:30 noon. And interestingly enough, a couple of booths were already like sold out of some of their items. It was very much more chaotic and the booths were pretty small, so some of them felt really crammed with like 5 or 6 people in there. So it wasn't the best experience to peruse and just hang out and talk with the vendors about what they were selling. It felt a little bit crammed. I also went with the idea not to buy too much because right now the currency between the Canadian dollar and the American dollar is and with the tariffs, we were kind of expecting to have to pay a bit of duty coming back to Canada, but we didn't because the border officer was really nice and kind of just let us come back. We also didn't spend too much, so we didn't overdo it at the convention either, but it was really fun and exciting to see vendors that we don't have here. Now, one of my main goals was actually to get more fiber to spin because I had just finished the tour de fleece and spun almost all of my braids and all of my wool. So I immediately went to Little Fibre Co because I wanted to get some of her roving. I had followed her on Instagram a while back and I really liked her braids and I really liked her color palette that she dyes. And I got 2 of these braids. Now the colorway is Impossible. This is 100% American Rambouillet. It is 20.5 microns and it is 4 ounces. I really loved the light pastels in this one. And I'm super happy that I was able to get a couple braids from her. And I have since then started spinning this. So this is how much I have left of the first braid because it's been a while since August 10th. One of the reasons why I already cracked into that second braid and started spinning it up is because at the beginning of the month, I was actually working on a different spin. So this is 100% Hanui from Hanui Farm in New Zealand, but it was hand dyed by Brambles Ridge, and this was the colorway for Fibre West. I'm mixing up all the festival names, there's too many. So it is a very light pastel colorway again. It has a lot of the similar colors, a lot of the light blues, yellow, and I think this one had a little bit of green in it. But Hanui has a little bit more of a gray sheen to it, at least this one does. So it's a little bit more gray tone naturally. If I could ply these two together, but it wouldn't be enough to knit up a big project, and I wanted to get this yarn to create as many meters so then I could really knit something lovely with it. And I was looking at my braids and I quickly realized these ones are really, really similar in colors. If I spin these two as singles, I could then use this as a single all the way, and then I can have 2 strands be single spun of Little Fibre Co and one of the strands be the Hanui from Brambles Ridge. Now, I have never mixed fibers this way in a yarn before, and I have never mixed dye suppliers in a yarn before, or a final yarn, and I'm feeling kind of a little bit weird about it. Is that bad to mix? I don't think it's bad. It feels a little wrong to be mixing different dyers together, but I feel like these colors would work really, really well. And with that, hopefully I will have enough to knit the Traveler Shawl by Andrea Mowry and have a beautiful, stunning pastel traveler shawl. I really, really want to hopefully have enough yarn to knit that one with these 3 strands together. After that, I went to 40 Whisk's Fibres, which has the most adorable label. This is their label, and this is a flock colorway. That is why I got this one, because the label is super cute, and this is the colorway of flock. This is Shaniko in a silk blend. It is 75% Shaniko wool and 25% mulberry silk. It is 21 microns, and it is another 4-ounce braid. This is so soft and a really nice, lovely deep green forest with a little bit of blue to it. I love this color, and this is definitely my type of color vibe. I've been really into greens and blues, and just, I think greens and blues are just swamp vibes, are just becoming my normal color palette. I am also really interested in seeing what Shaniko wool is. I have never heard of this wool type before, and a lot of the vendors at Flock had Shaniko wool. If you've ever spun with this type of wool, I'd be really curious to hear how you feel about it. I'm definitely going to be doing a bit more research for it before I start spinning, because I also picked up this 2-ounce braid. This vendor had really cute different dyes of 2-ounce braids. This was Blarney Yarn comb top. This is superwash, 100% Shaniko wool again. This one is 20.4 microns, and it says merino / rambouillet. So I don't know if Shaniko is merino and rambouillet mix. This is the colorway Sour Apple 3, and this is just 2 ounces. So this is basically half of this one. One reason why I decided to get just one of these is because I am hoping to spin this on my brand new spindle from Woodland Woodworks. Now I do have a spin currently on it, but this was the Woodland Woodworks spindles that I ordered. It is a beautiful supported spindle, and when you pre-order a spindle from him, you're able to select the wood ball color that you want and the wood type that you want, and same with the shaft of the spindle. So I basically ordered this to be custom made for me, and I'm really happy with it. It got delivered relatively quickly. He made it in 2 weeks. So I'm really happy with the spindle, and I can't wait to spin so much more on it. I am spinning a little bit on it, but this is why I got this smaller braid, because I really wanted to test out that spindle and give you guys a full review of how I feel about it. And also see what Shaniko wool is, because I've never heard of it. My camera actually died, and I used up all of the space filming this podcast in my memory card, so I had to take a little bit of a sporadic break. Let's get back to talking about Flock, because I'm still not done. There is a few more acquisitions that I was able to get from the Fibre Festival, and I really want to show you guys. So first off, I guess that was kind of it for all of the spinning acquisition. I then didn't want to leave without purchasing any yarn. I didn't want to get a big sweater quantity of yarn because, again, the difference between the US and Canadian dollar wasn't too great right now, and there wasn't a particular sweater I've had my eye on that I really wanted to cast on just quite yet, so I didn't want to buy a sweater quantity of yarn just in case. So I opted for the next best thing, which is sock yarn. I got this very cute sock set, and I'm super excited to knit this one up and cast it on, and hopefully it won't turn out like my own sock design. Hopefully this one I'll have my tension figured out by then. But this is the Camilla Fibre Co from Nashville, Tennessee yarn kit. This is the CFC sock kit, and the reason why I chose this one is it is a sock yarn, and then you hold a mohair with it as reinforcement thread for the toes. Then the second reason why I went with this sock kit is because, if you guys know me, you know I've been in a little bit of a yak craze lately. Well, this is 85% merino, 10% silk, 10% yak. This has yak yarn in it. And then the mohair is 64% kid mohair. Did I just say mohel? 64% kid mohair and 36% silk. I'm having a really hard time with my words right now. But would you look at how drapey this sock yarn is? It's like a very soft, very flimsy, like drapey sock yarn. This is gonna feel amazing on my feet. And this is going to be super interesting because I've never held a mohair in any of my socks. I know it's a super common thing to do if your sock doesn't have any nylon in it. It's a super good alternative to get that reinforcing area, especially in the heel and the toe, and just add a little pop of color as well. So I'm assuming that this is going to be, because the mulberry silk is super, super soft. This mohair is really, really soft. I'm assuming it's going to be extremely warm on my feet, but extremely soft socks. So I'm really excited to knit this exact pattern because it came with it, so why not? And see how this yarn feels on my feet once it is knit up. This was a little bit on the pricey side, kind of splurged a little bit. This was $39 US. So converted to Canadian, that is, which is a bit pricey for socks, but it's the only one that I got. Then I opted and got some cute little notions. The first one I got was from Mabel and Jess, which came in this cute little bag, and they're actually some needle stoppers. So these are little blueberries. They're super cute, and I've been using them ever since. And honestly, I don't know why I had never gotten some needle stoppers before. You just put these on your needles when you put them in your carry case or take your projects anywhere, and it stops your stitches from flying off your needles. And if you're like me and you're using Chiagu needles or metal needles, your stitches will just naturally slide off, especially if you're using silk yarn or really soft fibers. So this is a great way to not lose stitches, and has been super, super useful. I might get more of these at upcoming events because, again, it's become one of my favorite notions and it's such a no-brainer. I then picked up a few little stitch markers. Now I no longer have the packaging, sadly, for these stitch markers. I'm gonna put the label right here from where I got them. I knew when I went to Flock that I would be picking these up because I actually really like them. So these are 2 of them. They're 2 simple stitch markers that came in the pack of 4. And then I chose this one because I really like this type of crochet tiled stitch marker. It's a little bit on the bigger side, but it's been super cute and hasn't been too like in the way as I'm knitting so far, because again, these were the stitch markers that I used for my Maple Meadow cardigan. The reason why I got this kit is because of this super cute little bowl. It's an even bigger stitch marker than the last one, but it's super fun, super cute, and I really liked the little bowl. They had so many other different designs of bowl textures, and they even had some holiday ones. This also was a vendor that shared their stall with another type of artist, a little clay artist, and I picked up one of their business cards. Now this is probably the most stunning business card I've ever seen. I even told her at the cash, I was like, this is beautiful. This is art by Sarah Bronsky, and from her I also picked up this little magnet of a little yarn skein, and it is super cute, and I've actually been using it on my fridge to hold up the very little painting business card, because honestly, to me, this is no longer a business card. This is artwork. This is super cute. So on my fridge, I now have the cute little magnet and business card, little ways to add art around my house. So this kind of sums up all of my findings and my haul from Flock. I also since then have received my fiber subscription club from Melly Knits. This is the Sommelier Club Blossom from August. This is 100 grams. It was Posy de Bouillet wool made in BC, blended with 5% sari and 5% mulberry silk. And I think this might be my favorite month so far. It is this gorgeous icy blue, super pretty. I love that the silk isn't too loud in this one. The silk is very, I mean, it's bluish green silk added, but it's not gonna be overly like tweedy and overly poppy in the yarn when I spin it up. So I'm really excited to spin this one up. It is so soft. This is amazing. I can't wait to spin it up. And along with this, it came with a super cute little pin from Melly Knits. A pin, I'm assuming that these were kind of leftover from the Tour de Fleece event that she was hosting, because she hosts a spin along for the Tour de Fleece. But again, amazing. I think this might be my favorite bet so far from the Blossom Club. Can't wait to spin it up. I'm thinking about using the supported spindle for that one as well. Now there were 2 more acquisitions this month that I did not intend to receive or get this month. The first one being a gift from Antonella at Cosy Posy Yarn, and she was overly kind because she already a couple weeks ago decided to give me her Lazy Kate. She saw that in my spinning videos, my Breed of the Month fiber studies. I was using my Lazy Kate to tension 2 bobbins, but the 3rd bobbin wouldn't be tensioned. So she messaged me and was like, hey, I have this laying around, I'm not using it, can I give it to you? So she sent it to me instead of it hanging out in her house, not doing anything. After that, she also reached out again to me and was like, hey, would you be willing to test out and try out some of my yarns? And I just wanted to show them to you because I think that they are beautiful and I can't wait to test them out. I'm honestly truly so grateful that she decided to do that because she really didn't have to. She's amazing and super sweet. And hopefully this doesn't make too much noise. She sent me some of her sock yarn. Now this is her Eco sock and it is 3 different colorways from her Canada color launch. So now they're all 80% eco-friendly wool with 20% global recycled standard nylon. They all are 3-ply fingering sock weights. So these are the 3 colors. And also, can I just give a shout out to her labels? They're super cute. I really like the little sheep. I love a label with very well curated art on it. So this one here, the light pastel, is the colorway of Vancouver, BC, which is super accurate because today it's a really gloomy gray day. This one is Newfoundland Labrador, and it is a more browny kind of stone mountain colorway with like little bushes of green. I really like this one. And this one takes the cake. This is Saskatchewan and it is green. And you guys know I love green, but I also love the more taupey tones in this. And I can't wait to knit these into socks. This is gonna be super fun and it feels really nice. It's a really good yarn and it's a really fun colorway. I'm really happy with these. How cute is this? Another little business card. She also sent me, because at the time I was knitting my blouse. What is the name of that blouse? Okay, well I was knitting this blouse with Sunday Fibre Co. It was their linen and silk fiber blend. So she thought that I should try out her blend, which I'm really excited to try out. She sent me 1 skein of these, but this is 65% silk and 35% linen. It is 115 grams, runs you 490 yards. This is a lot of yarn for a little skein. This is in the shade Driftwood, and I actually really like it. It's kind of like a sandy, almost rose gold, but not. I don't really like rose gold, but this is like just a little blush, but more sandy. I feel like the camera is really not giving it justice to this color. I'm really excited to try this one. It feels really, really nice, and it's a little thicker than the Sunday Fibre Co that I was using. I think this one is a fingering weight, but I think Sunday Fibre Co, their fieldling was a light fingering. It was just a little thin. And with the Sunday Fibre Co fieldling, I knit the Ophelia blouse. That's what it was. It was the Ophelia blouse, this one. So yes, she sent me this thinking, hey, you really like this yarn? Try mine. And I'm really excited to try it. Now the last yarn she sent me is Almost Black. That is the colorway, which is just because it is almost black. This is Feather. It is 90% superwash merino and 10% linen. It feels really nice. This is also a single plied yarn. Interesting. So it's a single ply fingering weight. And with this, I've been thinking what I could knit, because I have 800 yards. They're 400 yards each. Maybe if do I have enough for a cumulus tee? I could make another cumulus or another tee. I feel like a tee would be really nice in this yarn. What does the cumulus take? I completely forget. I'll have to look it up. But I feel like a t-shirt in this type of black almost black yarn would be really, really pretty. Now, on to the very final acquisition and on to a very new, exciting hobby, sewing. I recently have been working on and sewing up my own little tool case. So this is a quilting dream of mine. I've been into quilting for as long as I can remember. I love quilted fabrics. I just love the feeling of them and how they look really homey, and just I don't know, I never thought about trying it. And the reason why I got into quilting was because in April I went to Maiwa, which is a store on Granville Island, and I picked up the Farm and Folks Quilting Alchemy, which is a book all about hand dyeing your own fabrics and then cutting them up and using them into quilts. The book also has a couple patterns and beginner friendly patterns to knit and just how to do them and work them up. I decided to do one of the smaller projects to start off and hand sewed this beautiful quilting case. This is a tool case, and I also used a couple of videos on YouTube and Craftsy to kind of help me figure out how to sew this and work up quilting. So again, this is just like a hand sewn quilting case. This is just an entirely hand sewn project, and if you want to know more about it, I have a video going through the entire process, how I got this final product. But I really, really like it. I had so much fun working this one up. It is very color crazy on the outside, and I just used a couple fat quarters from my local fabric shop and just paired them because they had similar colors. So the color palette is yellow, I was gonna say gray, is yellow and orange, and I really, really love the strawberry print. So that was my first main decision, and then from there on I just kind of went a little crazy and wacko. This case also kind of got me really excited for sewing, and it took me 5 months to do because it was all hand sewn. The fabric was all cut by hand with a rotary cutter and a cutting mat. Like, that was a whole process on its own, learning how to cut fabric and just sewing all of the quilt by hand together before sewing the 3 layers, doing the quilt sandwich, and then I hand sewed the quilt kind of texture all around it. Quilting is not only sewing the fabric together neatly, which isn't too neat, but that is my first quilt. The final technique is to hand sew all over it, like through all the layers, to make sure that your mat, like your quilt bedding, your quilt bat, that's what it's called, and your quilt top layer and bottom layer are all pressed together, you know, so stuff doesn't move around. So that is what really makes up the quilt. It is the stitching, the top stitching. But that got me really into sewing, and I've been looking at a lot more sewing content when I'm knitting, and just I realized I kind of want to try to sew my own little project bags, sew my own little clothes. And I know sewing was really big this summer for a lot of knitters. They got the sewing bug, and I think I'm getting it a little bit late, but this kind of all motivated me to get my very own sewing machine. So I went to my local sewing shop here in Vancouver. It's on Granville Street, and it's called PFAFF, I think, PFAF. Now, I did go a couple times before picking out my exact sewing machine because I really wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, and I also wasn't sure if sewing was exactly a new hobby I wanted to dive into. That is why I also hand sewed my first project. It was kind of like a test. Do I even enjoy this before buying a full-on machine? A lot of the sewing machines here on Facebook Marketplace were also really old ones, and I like that if I went with this particular seller, she does have a store. She also offered me assistance if I ever need it in the future. I could just give her a phone call, and she also has this exact sewing machine on the floor because it's like a small sewing shop. So she was like, you could always just bring your project and use the sewing machine here, and I can show you how to use it. So I really like that accessibility, and I like that I have someone, if I ever need help, to help me with my sewing project, other than my sister, because I've been calling her a lot. Since then, I picked up the sewing machine last week, and I immediately started and sewed my first project in one day. To think about the fact that this took me 5 months to make, I made my very own little bag. quilting book. And now this is another pattern inspired by the Farm and Folks quilting book. And this one is, I say inspired because I made mistakes. Because it's my second sewing project ever. First off, the fabric that I picked up, I was really limited in how much I had because I picked up some scraps that were left at my fabric shop and just pieces that were already pre-cut. So they were cheaper because of that, but at the same time, I didn't have like a full yard of any of the fabric. So the first mistake I made was with this red, which I had the least amount of, the checkered square, the gingham square in the center here. I accidentally cut it 1 inch too small on all the sides. And because of that, because it was the center of my sun, I then had to cut all of the squares 1 inch shorter in the round. So this bag is first off a little bit smaller. It's supposed to be a giant tote bag. This is 1 inch small on all square, you know. The second mistake I made was I sewed it all together, and then I noticed behind me there were a couple strips of this fabric right here laying, and I was like, wait a minute, why do I have excess fabric left over? And that is because I was supposed to sew this here on the long, which I did after, but I'm also supposed to sew it at the bottom too, so that there's like a little section of the pear fabric at the bottom. So the bag is not only supposed to be bigger, but it is supposed to be taller. I just sewed it here on the top to kind of have a little fold with my top fabric. I kind of went rogue on the top closing part because I didn't have that fabric pre-attached to my bag. I then also only had limited meterage for the strap. So my strap is a little bit smaller than what it's supposed to be, but the bag's already smaller, so I figured it would be fine. It's a little bit more of a higher up bag, and the strap is technically supposed to go all the way down to the base so that it's more structurally sound and doesn't like pull out or fall apart depending on what you put in your bag. If your bag was bigger, it might become heavier. My strap only goes up to here. So this bag already has a lot of differences from the original pattern, which is why I say it was inspired. But this bag also taught me so much because I had to figure out a lot of mistakes I made and find workarounds that worked best for me. I also didn't have, so on this side it's red, but on this side it's like a taupe brown because I didn't have enough fabric of either colors to be the full lining of the bag. What other mistakes did I make? This bag was just like a work of brain. Like this bag just took a lot of brain power to create, but I'm really, really happy with it that this was what I was able to create in a day after getting my first sewing machine. I'm pretty impressed with what I was able to do and the fact that it was so much faster, again, than this one. But I did take a lot of lessons I learned from this construction and working on a quilt and used it in this one. So I do feel like having hand sewn it, I did know a little bit more about sewing and like folding pieces together, hemming pieces, and just the way you need to like iron your fabric beforehand and the seams. I also kind of knew how to rip back seams without making too much of a mess when I did need to rip back. So this project was like, I'm really, really glad that I did this one first before getting my sewing machine and sewing this one. I think that these projects together are both amazing first projects, and none of this could have been done without also getting the book, because the book was a huge inspiration and really helped me to learn the lingo about quilting and also allowed me to follow Sarah Larson Buscaglia. I'm sorry, I'm looking up her name, but she also has quilting events on her Instagram and will share free quilting patterns and just quilting inspiration. And it also allowed me to follow different sewists, but also different quilters, and just kind of learn more about quilting as a hobby. And I'm really, really happy that I now have this new hobby in my life. I'm hoping to learn more about sewing and sew a little bit, maybe some clothing items next, but also maybe start my big quilt because I do need a new bedspread and I would love to have a hand quilted bedspread. I'm still going to be hand sewing because, for example, for my bedspread, I might sew to machine all of the quilt pieces together, but the top stitch needs to be hand quilted. For my bag, I did do the machine top stitch and I just did a very simple diagonal all the way across because I thought, I don't know, the textures was already really loud. I didn't want to add too many swirls or curves, so I thought that this would be a really nice addition for the bag. But I do prefer the look of hand sewn top stitching. The uneven stitches, the wider stitches, the thicker thread is just so much more, this is quilted than machine sewn. So I think when it comes to it, I will be sewing the top stitch, at least on my quilt, by hand, which will take me forever. And for those of you who are curious, the sewing machine that I decided to go with is put away right now because I'm working on my Breed of the Month fiber study, but it is the Genome SUV 1122 model. That's the one that was recommended to me because I'm going to be sewing with different material textures. I plan to sew the Marie pillow, I plan to sew different fabrics and textures, and that one could just, it's a workhorse of a home machine, not a like industrial machine. So that's the one that I went with. So now this kind of sums up this month's Knits and Babbles. This was a lot and I'm actually really curious. Let me know in the comment section down below if you'd want to hear more about my sewing journey or more sewing content in the future Knits and Babbles. This was a little bit of a sporadic new craft for me, and I know that this is mainly a knitting content video and spinning content, but maybe if you guys are interested, and depending on how the feedback is, I could add sewing because sewing is going to become like, it's knitting, spinning, and then sewing right now. So sewing is a hobby to my hobbies. Who knows what the future may hold. So other than that, thank you so much for watching and being here with me today. If you made it all the way through to the end, I really appreciate it, and your support means the world to me. And also, let me know in the comment section what you were working on while I was talking, if you got any progress done, and if not, how has your day been going? Because today has been really good for me. I really look forward to reading all of these comments and hearing more about you guys and your lives and what you're up to. I read all of the comments that you guys write, and they mean the world to me, even if sometimes I don't always get around to answering them. I do get sidetracked a lot, but I do read everything that you guys write. And thank you again for watching this week's video. I hope you guys have a lovely, beautiful day, a lovely, beautiful weekend, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!